Hi everyone, and welcome to the very first lecture of Introduction to Computational Literary Analysis, a course being taught summer of 2021 at UC Berkeley, virtually, that is, on the interwebs. So I have some slides prepared for you to introduce you to the field, and then I'm going to show you around the syllabus and just introduce you to the course and what we're going to be doing this summer. This is a course that has been taught every summer since 2018 and also once during the fall at Columbia University. It's online only this summer for pandemic reasons, but typically this has been taught in person at the Berkeley campus. And because it's been taught so much, it's a well-oiled machine at this point. I've done it a whole lot, and it just gets better every time. So I'm a PhD student and a researcher and an instructor in the Department of English and Comparative Literature at Columbia University. You can check me out and check out my research at johnreeve.com, where I publish occasionally some things that I'm working on. I specialize in computational literary analysis, the very thing that we're going to be learning in this course. And so I like to tell people that I write computer programs that help us to understand novels and poems and plays. So this course is at icla2021.johnreeve.com. It is a course that we're going to be interacting with mostly using text. And so I've prepared these lecture videos, and then we will meet once every day, Monday through Thursday, to discuss what we've read and to discuss programming on a text-based communication platform known as Zulip. I'm calling this a Zoom-free zone because the video conferences, especially on Zoom, that have been so popular these days, I find to be a little exhausting. And I feel like by moving Classroom into a text-based platform like Zulip, we will take some of the pressure off and at the same time allow us a little bit more time for daydreaming off camera, which I think is, a valuable activity for literary analysis. So this course deals with a new field called computational literary analysis. And so what is that? It's an exciting new field. You may have heard of it before. It's also similar to text analysis, cultural analytics, digital humanities is kind of the umbrella term for computational literary analysis and a whole bunch of other subfields. You may have also heard this kind of thing referred to as distant reading. I like to call it reading books with computers. And so we use computers to analyze digital texts in ways that tell us new and interesting things about those texts. So let me just give you a few famous examples of the kind of thing that you may have seen around town that qualifies as computational literary analysis. And so one of these is, you may have seen a chart like this before. This is what we would call a social network diagram or a social network chart, and it can represent any number of things. And so this particular one represents the number of times that characters have co-occurred in a given scene in the TV show Game of Thrones. And so what's interesting about a chart like this is that you can see sort of at a glance who the important characters are in a given play or in a given television series, and characters that one might not think of all the time as main characters might be in more scenes than anyone else, and might be these kind of missing links, these links that tie together the character network of a given work of fiction. Here's another one that I thought was pretty interesting. This is an attempt to measure loudness in the novel. And this was created by an undergraduate at Stanford working in the Stanford Literary Lab. What they did is they looked at all kinds of metrics that they thought that they thought represented loudness. And so in this case, it's the incidence of an exclamation point, the incidence of loud words like cried or yelled or screamed. And all of these metrics were compiled into what they considered to be this measurement of the loudness of a novel. And then what they did is they just went through a sliding window of the text and measured this, what they're calling loudness. And so what you end up seeing here is really interesting stuff, because it shows you, in a sense, the arc, the character, the narrative arc of the novel. So you can see it's pretty quiet in the beginning, and then you have these crescendos and decrescendos, or what they're known in literary studies as a denouement, or a reconciling that happens after a big climax, narratively speaking, in the novel. And so this is just one of many ways to chop up a novel and to perform an analysis over each segment of the novel. And this is going to be one of the things that we're going to learn how to do. Here's another one in which the vocabulary of a number of rap artists was studied by this analyst who looks at the number of unique words and uses that as kind of like a measure of the rapper's vocabulary, and finds some really interesting results, especially with respect to major literary works. And so Moby Dick would be about here, and Shakespeare would be about here. And this is the kind of thing that we're going to learn how to do as well. Vocabulary we can represent by something known as type-token ratio, which I'm going to show you a little bit later on in the course. Here, a colleague of mine, Ryan Heuser, studied the incidence of abstract and concrete nouns and verbs, words that are either abstract or concrete. And yeah, you can't see the years here, they're cut off, but this is showing us in the beginning here we're seeing text from 1600, and in the end here we're seeing text from 2012. And each of these lines represents a genre, and they are more concrete if they're further down here in the y-axis, and they're more abstract if they're higher here. And what he shows us is that abstractions were something that you saw a whole lot in the 19th century, but in the 20th and 21st centuries you see a real drop in abstraction and a rise in concrete words. And so this is what we would call a diachronic analysis of a major corpus, like a really big corpus of text. And this is the kind of thing that I'm going to show you how to do as well. So you might ask yourself, but why? Why would we want to learn all of these things? And so there are tons of reasons, not just to get a better look at a given text that you're really interested in looking at, and not just to look at the big picture either, hundreds of thousands of texts at a time, but really procedural analysis helps us to learn about anything, just abstractly speaking. And another way of thinking about that is that this is a new way of reading. Computational literary analysis is a new way of reading texts. We're using computers to help us to read in new and interesting ways. So why literature? Why do we want to study literary works, especially older 19th century works, for example? Well, text analysis is general purpose. We can really use this for anything, not only in literature, but of course, you can write software that reads thousands of Reddit posts at a time, does a sentiment analysis on them, and then uses that information to bet on stocks, for example. And this is a common pattern. But literature is one of the most difficult subjects for text analysis. And so if you can analyze literature, you can really analyze any text. Also, literature is awesome and it's cool, and you've probably learned about it already to some degree, but now we're going to learn about it in an entirely new way. So another reason why we would want to get into computational literary analysis is that it helps us to read what digital humanists often call the great unread. And so imagine that you have a library that has been collecting novels, for hundreds of years, and there are hundreds of thousands of 19th century novels in its collection. Many of these haven't been read in a really long time, and so maybe our grandparents read them, maybe they were taught in courses 100 years ago, but now they've kind of fallen to the wayside. So what computational literary analysis can help us to do is to computationally read some of these older, more unread novels to determine, what are the ones that we might want to pay closer attention to? What are the books that we haven't read in a long time but we should be reading? So this is one of the many questions that this kind of analysis helps us to answer. So prerequisites for this course, there are none. And this might be surprising to a lot of you because a lot of what we tend to think in our current society is that the prerequisite for doing something like programming is kind of like a lifetime of work in mathematics and STEM fields, and I just think that's just not true. And furthermore, it keeps a lot of us, English majors like me, for example, from learning computational techniques because we think that we're never going to be able to do it, that it's only something for math geniuses or physics majors, and I want to disabuse you of this notion because programming is nothing more complicated than explaining how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to a 4-year-old. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you are explaining how to make a sandwich in its most procedural form, you start by saying things like, okay, well, you take some bread, now you put some tomato on it, now you put some prosciutto on it, and maybe, maybe the sandwich programming language that you're writing in will say error, prosciutto cannot be found, or error, like tomatoes are not sliced. And then you have to back up and say, okay, well, step 1.5, slice the tomato, then put the tomato on the bread. And that's all it is. It's just kind of like a patience with being procedural as if you were explaining how to make something from scratch. So it also involves breaking a procedure into steps. So it's just a skill that you learn for how to explain a process in a step-by-step form, and really anyone can do that. The programming language that we're going to be using in this course is Python, which gets its name from the Monty Python comedy troupe from England. They were really popular in the 80s and 90s. And if you haven't seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, go and see it because it's hilarious, and some of our examples will come from that. So just a quick pep talk. Again, it's not true that some people are better suited to coding than others. Really, anyone can do it. You can do it. And furthermore, I always say that English majors are the best candidates for new coders, really, because if you are in tune to things like the placement of a semicolon, or why you would want to use a semicolon instead of a colon, all of these things are important in coding because an attention to detail is really useful for something like programming. And you can do it. Yes, you can do it. You don't have to be a certain kind of person to be able to do it. And so, again, the syllabus is at ICLA 2021. This is old, excuse me. ICLA2021.johnreeve.com. And this is what the syllabus looks like. When you go there, you will want to make sure, because this course has been taught so much, that you're looking at the 2021 version, because if this says 2020 or 2019 or something, you are in the wrong place, and you want to make sure that you check the URL so that it's ICLA2021.johnreeve.com. And now I'm going to show you around the syllabus a little bit. Okay, So let's take a look at the syllabus. First of all, you will notice that it's a website, and it's a website that I will be updating all the time. And so I'm going to be posting lecture videos like this one, the links to them here, and really anything you need that is course related is going to come from this website. So it's not going to come from Canvas, B courses, or anything like that. It's going to come from this website. A few things to note. First is that the table of contents here is really useful, and you can get it by clicking on this thing. And you can get to whatever day we happen to be on. Right now we're on this course introduction, so I can click on that and jump straight to that. I can use this table of contents to jump all around the syllabus, and that is pretty handy. Yeah, so here I'm giving you lots of links. I am saying that, for example, we will be having these discussion meetings Monday through Thursday at 12 noon Berkeley time on Zulip in this course chat room, https icla2021.zulipchat.com. And so Zulip is a text-based chat platform. It's kind of like Slack if you've ever used Slack, but it's open source, and it's great, and it's threaded, and we'll be using that as our main course communication platform. So why text chat is something that I already talked about, but that will become a whole lot more clear as we get into the groove of chatting with one another via text. And I'm going to show you, among other things, how to use Markdown pretty soon. And Markdown is the language used in Zulip, which is kind of like just a way of formatting text in a pretty way using plain text. You can, if you want, visit the course repository, and that's where I'm going to be posting some of the homework and everything. It looks like this. And I left a little link here to the Getting Started section, which is just a section of this syllabus that you can jump to. But first, I want to dive into some of the first parts of the syllabus here. So, again, there's no background necessary in programming or computer science. We will be covering a lot of the same topics that an introductory course in natural language processing covers, or computational linguistics. And so if you've ever heard of computational linguistics, this uses a lot of really similar techniques. And if you've ever heard of natural language processing, this is what they call in computer science text analysis. And they call it that because language in computer science typically means a computer language, and natural language refers to languages like English and French and Chinese and so on. So we will attempt to be answering questions like, what are the characteristic speech patterns of the narrators in Wilkie Collins' The Moonstone, which is one of the texts that we'll be reading? What words are most frequently used to describe Catherine Mansfield's female characters? Or what novels in the 19th century are the most similar to each other? And so we'll be using the Python programming language again, which is a really easy to use, really beginner-friendly programming language. And it looks a lot like poetry because it's indented in certain ways, and I think you'll find it really welcoming. We will be doing things like authorship detection, topic modeling, word embeddings. And we're going to be reading 3 works, Wilkie Collins' novel, The Moonstone. So one full novel and a number of short stories from The Garden Party and Other Stories by Catherine Mansfield, and Dubliners by James Joyce. And so these are all really fun texts, I think. And I think you're going to love them as well. The Moonstone is often considered the world's, the first detective novel in English, that is. And it's a really exciting text that I think you're gonna love. In addition, to a couple of modernist short story collections. So Wilkie Collins' work is 19th century work, and the others are early 20th century. And yeah, so why these texts? Well, for one, they're out of copyright and they're freely available anywhere. Anything before about 1922 or so is freely available if it's been digitized in some kind of electronic text form. And so that's most of what we're going to be working with. Okay, so we're again mostly going to be focusing on analyzing literature, but you can really use any of these skills for computationally analyzing any text. And so if you're not an English major but a history major or a philosophy major, or you do cinema studies or something, or you're a PhD student in Italian, just to name a few, you can use these text analysis techniques in your field. It's easily mappable to just about anything. And these are highly, highly marketable skills. And so if you learn computational text analysis, this is the kind of thing that companies like Google and Facebook are really in need of. They really need people that study natural language processing or computational text analysis. And so the kinds of things that you're going to be learning here can really help you get a great job after you graduate. And yeah, but not only that, of course, it's the kind of thing that really deepens our knowledge of literature. And so, again, there is no prerequisite here for programming or computer science. However, if you are coming from a programming background, that is great, and that's going to help you a whole lot. And yeah, so typically people come to this course either with a comparatively low level of experience with programming or a comparatively low level of experience with English literary study. And both cases are fine because there are really no prerequisites. And I'm including lots of resources to help you along, to give you some extra help either with the programming aspect or the literary aspect of things. Okay, so this course structure is really unusual. We have text-only chats every day, and a lot of the reason why I'm doing this is to make it so that if you're calling in from different time zones, maybe you're halfway around the world, I'm trying to make it so that you can still participate in this course no matter where you are. That said, yeah, please do let me know if you have time zone issues, if you're calling in asynchronously or you want to participate not during the times that our discussion sections take place live, but some other time. Just let me know and we'll arrange some time where I will expect to see your participation. Okay, so the course structure is really these few things. It's lecture videos. So rather than have the lectures take place live, I'm recording these videos ahead of time so that you could watch them at any point. Please try not to watch them too far in advance if I have lots of videos posted in advance, because sometimes I revise this course content from prior videos. They're usually between 30 and 70 minutes long, and the idea is to please watch them before the discussion section. So today is going to be a little bit different, of course, but yeah, please, after today, please try to make sure to watch the lecture videos before coming to the discussion sections. Okay, so we will hold these discussion sections on Zulip, again at icla2021.zulipchat.com. Zulip looks a little bit like this. I would suggest familiarizing yourself with Zulip by looking up a YouTube video that presents the whole thing to you, and I'll leave a link to that somewhere. But it basically it looks like this, and you can create new topics. You can give that topic a title. You can press send. And crucially down here, there's a help button that will give you kind of a cheat sheet for how to format messages using Markdown. And so please read this. Please learn everything you can about communicating with Zulip, because it's a really powerful platform, and that's what we're going to be using for really all course communication. So rather than email me anything, please just drop me a message in Zulip. Please make it public unless it's something like about grades or something really sensitive, in which case feel free to private message me on Zulip. Yeah, so as in a traditional classroom, some days you will want to speak more than others, and that's totally fine, but please say something thoughtful at least once per class. And this is kind of how I take attendance, is that I look through Zulip and I see, okay, these people have spoken today, and yeah, so that's really important to at least say something once per class. You don't have to be super talkative, of course, but try to participate to the level that you're comfortable with. We will often be talking about big picture stuff related to certain text in Zulip, but we will also be having discussions in the margins of the text itself that I'll talk about a little bit later when I show you all of the different types of assignments that we have. We also have one other type of meeting, which is every week from 12 to 1 p.m. Berkeley time on Jitsi, which is a video conferencing platform. We're going to meet, and we'll just meet there and have a really informal chat about how you're doing with homework, how you're doing with anything else related to programming. And so it's a really good idea that you attempt the homework assignments before coming, so then that way you can ask any questions about them during the lab. And so, this is optional, but really strongly recommended. I won't be taking attendance during this open lab time, but please do try to come and hack around on some things there with us. And you can even just come and just quietly work for the hour if you want. Okay, so getting started. Okay, so to get set up for this course, you're going to need a computer that runs Linux or macOS or Windows. Linux is the best. Of course, macOS is a little bit worse, and Windows, you will kind of have some trouble working with things. So, if you have an old computer that you can throw Linux on, do that, because it'll save you a whole lot of headaches in the future. But that's neither here nor there. Any of those three will work. You will need a good internet connection, and I've tried to make the course software work as globally as possible, but really make sure that you have an internet connection that is not filtered in some way. So if you're calling in from a country that has a restricted internet system, you may want to look into getting a VPN. And so Berkeley, I think, has VPNs that they provide their students. Please get in touch as soon as possible if you have any difficulty accessing anything course related. So how do we get started in this course? Well, we have to set up a few accounts. One of them is I would like you to fill out this short course survey first, which is just a few questions, and it's questions about your background and your usernames. Then I would love for you to create a GitHub account. And so GitHub.com is a place for software to live on the internet and for people to interact with each other in the creation of software socially on the internet. And it's a great thing to get started with using. And I would like everyone to first create a GitHub account, and if you don't already have one, and please use your real name or your English name or your preferred name as your username, and add a picture of yourself. And both of these things are really important, because I really need to be able to associate your username with your real name so that I know what student equals what user. And then use that GitHub account to log into Zulip for the first time. So click sign up, and then click sign up with GitHub. And again, that's icla2021.zulipchat.com. Then introduce yourself to everyone in the chat room. Just say hi. This is my name, this is my background, this is my year in the program. Here are the kinds of things that I'm interested in, that sort of thing. Then I'm going to have you sign up for a user account on Hypothesis, which is our annotation platform. So Hypothesis is this cool little thing that enables you to annotate, in other words, like highlight and write things in the margins of a text online. And so to do that, I would select any text anywhere on the course website, and you'll notice I can select either highlight or annotate. And so if I select annotate here, this will allow me to write a comment about something. So where I could say, this is a test annotation. How cool is this? And I can preview it if I want. I can add links, I can add images to my annotations, I could put LaTeX math in there, I could do all kinds of things. And crucially, I can add a tag to this. So I could say, my tag is going to be test, and I can press tab there. I just pressed the tab key, and it's added this tag text. And so this will allow us to group tags, group annotations together. And now once I hit post to public, this will post this so that everyone else can see it. But to get to this point where I'm doing this, I first needed to create a user account. And so I've already logged in here, but you will want to create a user account. And as before, please use your real name as your username so that I know who you are. Because I've had students in the past have usernames like, I really like to roller skate 253, and that username might be fine, and it might be what you use for your usernames everywhere else on the internet, but it does not help me at all, because I will sit there and go like, I don't know how to associate the student's annotations with the real name. So please use your real name, and please add a picture of yourself also. That will help me as well. And finally, the last step is to download and install Anaconda, a Python distribution that contains a lot of data science packages. And so if you go to this link, Anaconda, it says your data science toolkit, and it tells me that I can download this for my platform Linux, but you can also download it for other platforms. So if you have a Windows machine, you will want to get 64-bit graphical installer unless you have like a really, really old computer for some reason. And you will download that installer, and then install Anaconda Navigator, which looks like this. And let's see if I can make a bigger image here. And all of what we're going to be doing is going to be using Jupyter Lab, which is something included in Anaconda Navigator. And so that's everything you need to get started with this course. Let me show you a few other features of the syllabus. One is that you will at some point need some extra help or some extra resources. Like maybe you're falling behind with the programming, maybe you think that the literary aspects of things are a little bit out of your wheelhouse, and that's totally fine and that's totally normal. Don't worry, just reach out for some extra help. Of course, on Zulip, other students might help you out there if I don't get to it that fast. But there are lots of other places that you can get extra help in parallel. So one is the NLTK book, which is this really poorly formatted book about the natural language processing toolkit, one of the libraries in Python that we're going to be using. And if you read this book, which is written for non-programmers, it really does a great job introducing you to a lot of Python concepts and their use in text analysis in particular. And so this is a really great book. And I'm going to mention this book a few more times. I also have a couple of tutorials. There's also a really great interactive textbook called How to Think Like a Computer Scientist. And these are all great things that you can do in parallel with the course, because even if you think you have a grasp on a programming concept, it's often not until you actually sit down to do it yourself and type the words in yourself that you really learn it. And it's good to try that in lots of different ways from lots of different sources. So I'd really recommend, getting some extra help, even if you don't think you need it. You might need some extra help with the literary end of things as well. So you might find that, reading a 19th century novel is a little bit over your head, or some of the literary critical terms that we use in class are a little bit foreign to you. And so I list some resources here, like Abrams's Glossary of Literary Terms is one. Companion to the Victorian Novel is another. And these just might help you get up to speed with what is meant by something, like a theme or a motif, or other literary critical terms that you might hear me use sometime in the class. Okay, so what are the requirements of this course? Well, there are 3 types of assignments. One is daily, one is weekly, and one is just for the whole course. The daily assignment is annotations and discussions, which are 40% of the final grade. This here should actually say daily annotations, so that's a mistake. So 20% annotations, 20% class discussions. So this means that you'll be graded on just your participation in the course chat room every day on Zulip, and with your annotations. And so each time we read something, we will read, say, like a chapter of The Moonstone at a time, or a short story from Catherine Mansfield. Each time you read something, I'll have you do some annotations, and this will be worth ultimately about 40% of the final grade. Homework assignments are 30, and the final project is 30. So let's talk about each one of these in detail. So the readings are, we start with The Moonstone. And so if you were to click on The Moonstone here, or if you were to click on The Moonstone at this tiny little link at the top of the page, either one of those will take you to this thing that looks like this. And so it looks just like the course syllabus, where you have this table of contents, just like as before, and you have all of the chapters, so you can really easily access different parts of the text there. And you have just the text of the novel, the whole text of the novel here. You can read this on paper if you prefer, and I'll show you some additions for that. But it's important that all of our annotations take place in this electronic edition of the novel. So what an annotation means is I'm going to highlight something that I think is interesting. Maybe it's a line, maybe it's a word, maybe it's a whole paragraph, but I click annotate, and then I can write something about what I'm annotating. So I can say, I can write a question, I can write a comment, I could say this is a real historical event, and I could look this up on Wikipedia if I want. And I can grab the URL here, and I can add it here in Markdown, where I could say this is a real historical event called the Siege of Seringapatam on Wik. Here's the Wikipedia page that describes it. And I can add a link to this. I can select something here and say I want to add a link, and then I can copy and paste the link in there. And I could call this like history or historical background, and then I can press tab again, and that creates this tag. Now, once I have previewed it, I'm satisfied with the way this looks, I can post this to public. And I've written an annotation, but this is not exactly the type of annotation that I would like you all to write. So when we write annotations, I have a few suggestions for how exactly to write that. Yeah, so let's talk about that. Now, for each reading assignment, I'll have you write just 2 to 3 annotations to our edition of the text, right? So directly on the website here, using a hypothesis. So again, this means that you have to sign up for a hypothesis account and make sure that that account uses your real name. You can write about anything that you want, but later it will help your final project if you think about ways in which computational literary analysis might help you better understand what you've seen in the text. So good annotations are concise, so you can think about this like a long tweet, right? Maybe a few sentences, certainly not a few words. You know, think a long tweet. So complete sentences, but it doesn't need to be a paragraph or anything, and it's probably better if it's not a paragraph. Try to make it well written. It doesn't need to be super formal, but try to write it well, and try to make it observant rather than evaluative. So what I mean by that is, instead of saying I really like this or I really don't like this, try to say what you see happening instead. So try to make observations rather than evaluations. And you can also respond to another student's annotation for one of your 2 annotations if you want. And so you'll notice down here there is a reply button. So if I hit reply, I can say, that's so cool, Jonathan. I'm looking forward to seeing more test annotations. And I could add a tag here where I can say test and press tab. You'll see, by the way, that when I started typing test, that was one of the suggestions that it gave me. And so using some of the same tags that other people use is often a good idea. So now I've just made a reply to this other annotation. Okay, let's see. So that's annotations. Yeah, please do this for each reading assignment. So for each chapter, each day that we have an assignment, just please make sure that you have an annotation there. Okay, so the homework is going to be 4 short homework assignments of 3 to 5 questions each, which are due the following week on Monday. So I'm going to assign them usually on Thursday or Friday. I'll give you a notebook, a Jupyter notebook to use. And then on Monday, as soon as we meet on Monday, we'll talk about the answers to the homework. So that means that I can't accept late work. And so if you submit it after we begin the Monday discussion section, I can't accept that. So please make sure to get it in early. I will tell you how to submit the homework assignments a little bit later. This might change from what it says here. And feel free to talk about the homework with other people on Zulip if you want hints or directions for how to approach a particular problem. But please do make sure that you do all of your work yourself and that you're not just copying someone else's code. So make sure that the code that you write is ultimately your own code. The final project that we're going to be doing is going to be a literary argument, and I'll explain what this means when we come closer to this, presented in the form of a short academic paper created from the application of one or more text analysis techniques toward the analysis of a text or a corpus of your choosing. So this means that it doesn't have to be one of the texts that we read in class, which is totally cool if you do choose that, but it can be anything you want so long as it's literary in some way. And so, yeah, just clear it with me ahead of time. We'll talk about this in much more detail as we get closer to this. We will also have final project presentations, which will just be like a quick 4-minute video that you will create presenting your work and what you're doing. And the final project will be graded according to the quality of the code and the quality of the literary critical argument presented. So one of the things that you will notice about this course is that it's about 50-50 in terms of computer science and English disciplinary mixture. And so we're going to be doing a lot of stuff that is really straightforwardly literary critical, like what is this text doing? How can we better understand this text? And about half of that is learning to program and learning to analyze text and find this literary critical information through the use of computer programs. You may also make your final project public for a 5% bonus, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So you will find everything you need here in the course schedule, and I'm going to be updating this syllabus almost daily with links to new lecture videos. So you will find the lecture video for today, July the 6th, here as soon as I post it. And you'll find the lecture video for tomorrow here under tomorrow's section. And you will find the reading that's going to be due for tomorrow here as well. So again, if you click on this, this opens in a new tab, but it takes you straight to the reading that you'll need to read for tomorrow. So the assignment for tomorrow is to read, what does it say? First period through chapter 7 of The Moonstone. So that means read the prologue and read the first period. Here, this is called the first period, up through chapter 7. So just up to chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Some very exciting stuff happens here, and the idea is to make, again, 2 to 3 annotations somewhere in this area that just reflect your observations and your thoughts about that particular passage. Later on this week, so this is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to be learning Python basics in the next couple of lecture videos, and we're going to be reading The Moonstone through chapter 11, and then at the end of this week I'm going to assign the first homework. And so that's a look at the first week, which is just an introduction to Python for text analysis. Again, any questions at all, or any thoughts or anything, or any problems related to time zones, related to technology, anything at all, please put them in Zulip so that I can see what's going on. Please make them public unless there's like a really good reason for making it private. Great, so that's all we need to get started. Please reach out, and introduce yourself on Zulip, and I can't wait to meet all of you in Zulip momentarily and talk about this some more, talk about the course, how it's going to go, and and then I will see you tomorrow for another lecture video, and I will look forward to talking with you pretty soon on Zulip. Great, talk to you soon.